All right, welcome everybody. Thanks so much. It's a little after 2 and we can just kind of kick it off and as folks straggle in. Thanks so much for being part of this ongoing effort and for attending some of the meetings along the way. It's been really great. I think we're starting to get some momentum. A few of us presented this morning at the Historical Topics Forum, and you can definitely see the change in tone of how people are responding to the project, which has been wonderful. But I'm going to leave it mostly in Joe's hands to facilitate for today, and I'm going to kind of back end look at things.
Thank you, Mimi. Welcome, everyone. If you looked at the agenda, really the objectives today are primarily around narrowing and sort of signing off and trying to come to some closure on the sites we're going to go forward at looking for approval on. We also, Mimi has collected a little more information on design and imagery parameters that she'll need some feedback on. And then hopefully we'll have a little time to talk about next steps going forward in the months ahead. So welcome Sam and welcome Jen. And I think just to open, we haven't seen each other all together in a month. So just making a little space for any thoughts you've had in the last month, any experiences you've had as we finish Black History Month in February and thinking about the project we're doing. Just any comments or thoughts. I just want to make a little open space for this. And I thought Mimi, if you don't mind, I'd like to just pigeonhole you a little bit. You said you felt a little different tone and a momentum, just maybe a sentence or two. What are you noticing? And then anyone else who has things they want to add in. It's an open forum for a few minutes.
I think when we first started, there was a lot of questions about how long are they going to be there? Which sites are they going to be accurate? There was like sort of like this level of anxiety that people were expressing. And overall, the tone is there's still some folks who are like, you've got this date wrong, this thing going on, but a lot more expressions of like, we think this is a great project. This is much needed. Uh, Telling untold stories. There's still a little bit of the we should do a trail also for Indigenous histories. There's still some of that, but there's a lot more positive voices. That it feels a little bit more like a given, where before it was we should stop this now.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. So just making space for anyone else, Beth or Jen or anyone on the advisory group had just thoughts about the last month or comments before we get started.
I just
I
think
want, I want to, I want to apologize. Somehow I got my scheduling mixed up, and I wanted to be at that last meeting. And when I realized I blew it, I felt bad because I know Joe was probably saying some bad things about me.
We were, not just me.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But no, seriously, I did want to be a part of the meeting. It was more my oversight, so I made it a
That's all
point.
right.
Um,
Everybody's busy. Don't
I
worry
just
about it.
want to say my apologies, and I'm glad to be a part of this experience.
Thank you, Sam. Uh, Beth, did you want to say something, Beth? I think it
no,
was it
Michael.
okay, Michael.
No, I guess to tag on to Mimi's comments that I'm glad to hear that she's noting that it certainly was something that I perceived as an undercurrent in our earlier meetings, and it's nice to hear that the sentiments have changed.
Good. Good. Hi, Rebecca. Nice to have you, Bob, Robert. I think we have everyone. So I'm just in the interest of time, I'd like to get started on really this first chunk. We're gonna taking where we left off and how we got to sort of where we're at today regarding location. So if you remember at the last time we met, our job was to brainstorm possible criteria, and you guys gave a really great list of ways to help us select and have some justification for, well, yeah, there's possibly 32 sites, but we're only going to have 8 or 10. Which 8 or 10 should we start with? And we took that brainstorm and tried to make some kind of, old teachers rubricize it and make criteria to do some site selection. So Mimi, I think I have the ability to share. Let me see. I'd like to share my screen if I can. Okay. So can everyone see Black Heritage Trail site selection criteria? Okay, great. So we took, as you see, for each, we came up with 5 criteria. For example, historic significance, and we came up with that derived from this brainstorm list here. Just so you, I know you've seen this ahead of time, but just for some context, we didn't just make up this criteria, it grew out of what you brainstormed last time. So there are 5 areas: historical significance, centering Black voice, agency, and full humanity, interpretive power and narrative clarity, how easy it was to talk about the site, did we have enough information on it? Back to number 2, really about like making sure we were telling the stories of Black Concordians and centering Black voice and Black history, and not slipping into another narrative. Contributing to a coherent and focused framework that showed empowerment, so that hopefully there's these sites hung together in some way, and then both accessibility and public engagement as best as we could. We took those 5 criteria and we created this rubric so that we could red, yellow, green each site. And I know you've seen this, but just for some context so folks know how we got there. So Jen and Mimi and I and Beth took this rubric and criteria and applied it to all the potential sites. And really what we generated was sites that had a lot of green on them. Like if we even had 1 yellow or a couple of reds, we didn't spend time doing the whole thing because we really, with only a small amount of sites, we wanted to really focus on the ones that seemed the strongest. And we really tried to stay out of too much of, well, it might not be possible, or we don't know if this person likes it, or we don't, let's just pick the ones that we think are the right ones, the best ones, the strongest ones, and then we'll work from there. So you had this about a week or so ago, and I got some really good feedback from folks, and we've modified this a bit based on the feedback we received from y'all. So I appreciate that. And I just want to go through them really quickly now, just so you see kind of where they are geographically, and in case you have any questions about them. And they're sort of grouped. The first one's sort of by itself, the historic Black neighborhood, which is the space near the Great Fields. And just as a quick memory for people who like maps, there's the center of town. Here's Town Square. If you take Bedford Street, you go past Sleepy Hollow. At the end of Sleepy Hollow, there's a spot right here. This is where the waste treatment plant is. This road right here, or this Formentary Branch Trail, it's a very well-traveled hiking, biking route that folks use throughout town, both visitors and lots of folks who live here. And this is the entrance to the waste treatment plant. Now we know John Jack's home, the Robbins' home, and the neighborhood was really more centered. The houses were centered back here, closer to the river. But this isn't really, as of now, good public accessible. There's a lot of sewage trucks going in and out. But this space here, we thought this might be a nice site for signage about the Great Field neighborhood, because yes, the houses may have been in this area, but the farm and the area they farm extended into this area. So that's the one site, and we thought it was strong in all areas. So I'm just going to go through these and then make space for some questions, okay? Then the next cluster is really back towards the center of town. Looking at specifically this sort of grouping. We have the townhouse itself, where John Garrison worked for so many years and was able to build a life for himself, integrated into Concord society. We know in the Sleepy Hollow, right, a bit behind, we've got this emerging sort of area of the cemetery where we know many of our famous Black Concordians are buried. When we've got John Jack's grave on the hill in the center, and then we've got the Universalist Meeting House, and we've got the center school. So just looking at the map, there's a lot in one area. You've got sort of this area up here in the old part of Sleepy Hollow that has the graves of Black Concordians. We know that in the center, we've got John Jack's grave site on the hill here. We've got the Universalist Meeting House here, and we've got the townhouse here, and we've got the center school here. So perfect for people who are visiting town briefly, people who never leave the center, a lot to see, all really good and all really strong stories. Now, there's some challenge in this area with signage possibly, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we look about design, because both the burial area in Sleepy Hollow here and John Jack's are actually located in a cemetery. So there might be some questions about, do you really put a historical sign in a grave area? Well, there is some precedence. If you go to Sleepy Hollow, there's all kind of wayfinding signs that tell you home of, go to Arthur's Ridge. Here's where Emerson's buried. Here's where Alcott's buried. There's all kind of signs that lead you there. They've got signs about what you can do in Sleepy Hollow. They even have a board that has a list of famous graves you can see. None of these graves, of course, are on that list, but we put the grave of the first woman who got a driver's license. Cool thing, but she's on the list. So if she's on the list, we probably can fit. So that's like how it might be a way to do that, but we'd like some feedback on when I stop this center section, would love some feedback on that. Also, there is a sign, Mimi, we're talking about what other signs they have in Sleepy Hollow. The town at some point put a granite post in for the place the person blows the bugle during taps. So there is precedent for putting signs in the cemetery. So we're not like doing anything, asking anything too crazy or odd. The church area here, the part that the town owns, if we wanted to mark Frederick Douglass's home, Frederick Douglass is speaking at this church, the Universalist Meeting House. This is town property here, but it is in the cemetery. So then we had some thoughts about, well, maybe the church would let us put us on the side. Then Mimi had a great suggestion. This is the townhouse. Town owns this property here. What if we did a combo of some sort of narrative sign if we had to, where it talked about John Garrison, the townhouse, it talked about John Jack up on the hill, and it talked about Frederick Douglass speaking here. Could there be a combination sign here? We don't have to decide that, but just knowing that we think there's a way to make this work. And then the center school where Ellen and John Garrison went, we'd have to get permission from the Masonic Lodge to use their spot on their land. And if not, there is some right of way owned by the town at the street side. So before I go on, questions, comments, advice, reactions, thoughts about any of these town center areas, this sort of like cluster in the center, including up here at the Great Fields. What thoughts, advice, questions do you have from the committee?
Looks good.
Agreed. It looks great.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about if we had to combine, like, what's your feeling about that? Like, feeling of last resort, and kind of give us some advice on this.
If you can do it as combined as last resort, that would be fine, but start out with your original intention and see if that's possible. Only because, of course, it honors them. And it's like a repeated dose of seeing these names and places in different locations. So, yeah.
I agree. As a last resort, yeah.
Okay. And Rob, I don't know if you're still, I can't see the full screen, but you had a question about where in the cemetery these would go. That's sort of that was sort of the answer to that question. It's unclear. Now, when the Robbins House put in the Hutchinson grave marker back in the early 2000s, I think that was because it was considered a grave marker. Maybe that's why. But you guys went through this process, I assume. Yeah. Michael, I can't tell. Is that a hand or
Yeah.
just yeah, I do that.
I would agree that we try to honor each of the sites where we can and to join them together, certainly in the center of the town, as a last resort. In where there's precedent for putting signage in the cemetery, if you can, name the bugler or the person that got the first morning that got the first driver's license. I guess I'm not seeing that there should be, again, where there's precedence, I'm not seeing there should be much difficulty with an appropriate signage for John Jacks.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on to sort of this next neighborhood area. Not far from the center, the there's kind of three that have kind of hang together. The Bigelow House, I'm sorry, no, the Trinity Congregational Church, significance because of its integrated worship space. And we know that the Sabbath school they had, Jen talks a lot about it, and the Robbins House always does, about, the Garrisons actually chose to enroll, became a member of that church, so that their kids could attend that integrated Sabbath school. And I think, Jen, if you're on the call, we know there's more than just the Garrison children that attended that Sabbath school. Is that right? There's more Black families. I lost Jen. I know she's driving, so.
Sorry. Yes. No, I'm on. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, like it's based on some of the research that Bob Gross did. He thinks that there was like, I want to say like 6 to 7 children who attended. So definitely the Garrison children, and then another family. So he really talks about kind of those integrated space, the idea that it was an integrated space.
Mm-hmm. Maria?
Yeah, and Bob Gross is the expert. What's interesting about us saying integrated space is that Obed, Ellen's uncle, was one of the founding members of the school. I think it is on Joy Street, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that church. And that's where then the family members left that Tricon experience of integration to go to the church on Joy Street. So it's a difficult story to tell. We have to be careful not to wax poetic that they were welcomed and well integrated because they were going to this church, because it leaves open the question of then why they left going to that church and preferred going to that Black community on Joy Street, where Obed was a founding member. So there's an opportunity to tell the full story if you do put the marker at, Tricon, but it's also a danger to not let people wax into this was a welcoming community. Because even Thoreau says in one of his letters that the Caesar Robbins farm area was on the outskirts, and he has a quote about them living on the edges of society. So it's a delicate balance.
Foreigners, I think he called them, foreign in their land, or
something like that. I'd have to look up all my old notes.
That's really helpful, because I was mistaken. I thought they left the church in Boston and to join, and it's really the other way around.
Well, I could be wrong because this is a little while ago. So
we'll find out the dates on that.
Yeah, we should definitely.
That's a very different story. The way you told it, that would be important to know.
Yeah, because I thought it was the opposite. Like I thought that Susan left the membership at Joy Street and then joined Tricon, primarily so that they could have a Sabbath education. But I don't. Yeah. But I guess we should check on that.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
That definitely changes the narrative.
Yeah. Huge caveat. I could be wrong. I do think that maybe the story is complicated, like any of our lives, in what Ellen chooses to do versus what Susan does, because Ellen, she's teaching there too. So that was one of the first places she goes to teach. So she's really finding it to be a community that she wants to go back to when she finally moves away. But Bob knows just the caveat of, how we tell these stories has got to be complex.
Yeah, and to not fall into a Storybrooke narrative, which is we're prone to do, left to our own devices, right?
Thanks.
Michael.
I may be the least informed. I was going through the lists sort of place by place, and help me on both the Fay house and the Barrett's house, their significance.
If you don't mind, can I go through the narrowed list?
Sure.
just because we took those off, I think I forget, I think I have to go back and find the reasons they didn't make it on the short list.
Oh, okay, okay. If they're off, the list
Yeah.
that the list that I had to go through, they're still on it. So
Okay. Yeah, we're looking at, if you look at the screen, the ones that are lit in all green are the ones
the
that are
color,
strong.
great,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay,
So,
never mind.
no, it's all right. The Bigelow House, we've talked about it at some length because of Chadwick Maintenance on his visit there, and really focus on the sort of his freedom journey, and it connects to the national story about fighting, and it connects him to the Boston Black leadership. And then really thanks to Sandra Petrolinas, just reminding us that, which I was working with her, could we identify with any sources? We know Harriet Tubman came to Concord 3 times to speak. Where did she speak? Where did she stay? So far, the only 2 pieces that Sandra has, and she's still looking, is we know for sure she stayed in the William Whiting House. She slept there, stayed there. And we know for sure she spoke in the vestibule of the church. Now, based on the year, Sandra, it could have been First Parish, it could have been Tricon, we don't really know. So we do want to tell the Harriet Tubman story, because it's amazing, and it connects Concord, little old Concord, to a wider. And then when folks are visiting, most people in the United States know who Harriet Tubman is. So that's what we thought we would, although we're just saying this is where she stayed, we would use whatever interpretive marker to tell kind of the full picture of her visits here, as best we know. And these are all just so geographically, they're all real close together. If we do Tricon, it's here. The Bigelow House is here. This is where Harriet Tubman stayed. Here's Concord Academy. I can imagine it's a lot of pretty cool thing for all the students and families who are in this area. It's right near the library. It's got a lot of good thoughts. And Rob had a really good suggestion. If we do this, we best figure out, if we can, how to get a picture of Harriet Tubman on there. Because when people see pictures of Harriet Tubman and pictures of Frederick Douglass in Concord, I think that's, for a visitor, that's a pretty cool thing. Maria, sorry.
No problems. Sandra would definitely be the best person to answer that. And I'm also wondering whether Leslie Wilson's Concord Free Public Library archives has been plowed through to also determine where Harriet spoke.
Okay. Leslie Wilson.
She moved away, but she was the primary, outside of Walter Brain, resource originally in her archives at the library. She had a finding aid for all of Concord's African history.
Okay. I'll check with Sandra to see if she's gone through that. I think she may have gone through some of it when she wrote her book, but good double check. That's a good one.
And Joe Anka should be able to help us. Overall of Leslie's research.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts about this neighborhood area? And it's a lot of people come by train. Many people walk down these streets as they come from the train to the center of town. So I think we'll pick up some nice, and just in terms of geographic opportunities, the Bigelow House is here. There's 2 crosswalks going from the library. If for some reason it wasn't feasible for the folks who live in the house, this is town property right here. So there's an opportunity to do some nice signage here. So, and it's well trafficked, and anyone who goes to the Umbrella and parks in the lot will see it. So it's a good spot. Maria made a really good point about Patriots of Color. We've done this work about Patriots of Color. Do we have anything at the North Bridge? So I just wanted to put out to the group, we know the National Park is working on a refurbishment of some of their interpretive panels to highlight Patriots of Color. We think that's being taken care of. However, we'll monitor it closely if for some reason for whatever reason that doesn't happen or can't happen, or they give up on that project, then I think that'd be part of the conversation for this group. Well, do we need to just put one in front of the Robbins House, or can we find a spot somewhere that's not National Park, that we'd have the ability to figure out how to do it. So it's here so we don't forget it, but I hope it's taken care of.
A suggestion or a thought?
Yes, please.
The trustees oversee the Old Manse property.
Yep.
And so that's closer to the North Bridge as a consideration.
Yeah, was thinking that too, if they're open to it, that might be really nice because easy to see.
And
Michael.
I might also, given current circumstances, one might think we should probably plan to have a fallback rather than have to revisit it.
Yep. And I know Beth and I are in close contact with the national park, and I've seen drafts of the panel, so at least they're that far. But now everything has to go to DC before they can move. So you know how that is.
Yep.
But it's very
Might be better
patriotic.
to have
But it's very patriotic, and they're approaching it from that mindset. So it might.
Seems that doesn't count these days.
Yeah. All right.
And
Bob. Oh, go ahead, Beth. Sorry.
the presents will be very great. There's more than one panel. They are beautifully designed, and this has been over a year now. So Simone is a huge supporter. It's whether she can get past the next phase.
Bob.
Well, I know that the Park Service has been working on documenting the Patriots of Color related to their national parks in particular, the Minuteman and the one in Essex, but they're doing it through the whole East Coast and in the Mid-Atlantic and the South as well. And this has been an ongoing project that should, be finished by this summer. I've been working on it with a group.
Mm-hmm.
So and that money had been allocated in a way that wasn't affected by any of the budget cuts or anything.
Good.
So I would think that they will be following through.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would just be remiss if people are coming to Concord to see about the American Revolution and they don't learn about Patriots of Color. We've got to have it somewhere. So hoping this goes well. If not, we're going to have to, even if it means the Robbins House does a fundraiser and we get some new money and we just do it, but we'll put it on the trail somehow. Just quickly, the Garrison Homestead, that's where John Garrison was able to build his home, had his dad live with them. Ellen would come and visit when he was working the townhouse. We're in contact, or will be in contact with the owners. We also know, just geographically, in case you're a map nerd like me, when you look at where the Garrison, let's go over there. Garrison Homestead is, actually, it's about, yeah. A lot of people are taking this sidewalk to go up to the Old North Bridge. They're on this side. The house is on this side of the street. The town does own the right of way there, so there's a potential it could be a signage that you see about the house across the street. So there's some options. Leaving that neighborhood, let's go over to little West Concord. Now, we went back and forth about the Freeman Cumming House. The Freeman Cumming House is where Brister Freeman was enslaved for close to 30 years of his life. It's located at everyone's favorite spot, the town rotary. And initially, there's no, people, who's going to walk over there to go see that? So we put it on there for this reason, because we know that as they work at redeveloping the rotary over the next 30 years or whatever, 15 years, something's going to happen to this Freeman House. We know it's going to be preserved. We hope it's going to be preserved. The Robbins House would like to be involved in making sure that happens. Would it be in our interest to highlight the purpose of this house, in the meantime? And the two places you'd see it, there is a sidewalk. You literally there's a crosswalk. You could walk here. You could walk down from Starbucks. After you have your Starbucks, you could walk here. But also, if you've ever sat in traffic in the afternoon trying to go through the rotary, you spend a long time crawling right through here. Might be interesting if you could even get permission from the state if there was some sort of signage there that you would see. So we just sort of put it out there. It's like, you hate to give up on it, and it would be nice if people knew about its importance before the big whatever happens. So we make sure people know that gets mentioned. So let me just finish West Concord, and then we can talk about all of these. And then the Brister and Fenda Freeman House site, that's from that West Concord, that's Walden Pond. We know there's a stone marker there already, and we also know there's Grady Flynn Scout Project there is a marker there already. So we would decide, do we want to add an additional marker, or do we just want to re-highlight what's already there? But it seems like an important site because it's another example of the progress towards freedom after the American Revolution. And then just lastly, quickly, your feedback was really clear about West Concord. So we're calling this the Dugan neighborhood. I'll tell you what we thought of, and then like your feedback on it. That when there's nothing tangible that we still have. Sorry, I got lost for a minute in West Concord. Where am I? Okay.
Find Ornac.
Yeah, there we go. So we know there's Jenny Dugan Brook, right? But in this area, Williams Road. In case you're curious, Williams Road, coming off of Old Marlboro, is where the Dugan family home actually was. It was torn down in the 90s, but 212 Williams Road is where it was. So the home that the Dugan family lived in was here. We know later on George Dugan owned a woodlot in Madison Field. So we know, when Thoreau calls this the Dugan Desert, right? So we know that was a cluster of marginalized families. But then we thought, well, how likely are people going to be walking along Williams Road? Yes, some people might go to Madison Field, but all they're going to learn about is the woodlot. When really the family farm was over here. So then we thought, well, there's a Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, which is heavily used. I think this map might be a little better for that. So here's the Freeman Rail Trail cutting through here, and there's a couple of spots where we could put it along the trail that could be one of these close to here, and then do the entire Dugan narrative. In this area, there were, and there's also a spot where it crosses, I think at Old Marlboro, where there's a big like switchback that goes up the hill, and a lot of people kind of gather in that area before it goes under the road. And Mimi, I think aren't you doing some work separately with the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail for signage, or Mimi and Beth?
Yeah, I'm working on a set of, it's more wayfinding signs along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So it's a combination of pole and arrow signs that say like West Concord Village, that far this way, 3 miles to the MBTA. And then there's also these mini directory signs. So and I've kind of pretty far along on the approvals for that and have the funding separately. So one of them we were alternating between either a pole and arrow or a mini directory right at that intersection with Old Marlboro and Williams, at that intersection. And that another one was at that switchback. So at Old Marlboro was going to be a mini directory, and then at the Powder Mill Road was going to be a pole and arrow. But those can easily be exchanged with one for the other. And what's nice about those mini directories is that it's got a digital print on the inside that the intention was those were going to be updated every other year or so. So we could kind of have some flexible information about, the historic neighborhood that was there and Black Concord along, the Dugan Brook.
Yep. And the Ellen Garrison building is right around the corner. Maria, and then Michael.
Yeah. So in interpretation, the rule of thumb is balanced and deep. And whenever dealing with Black American history, it's quite complex. And as we're talking about Jenny Dugan, it's a great reminder that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because my memory may not be serving me well, but she's Welch. And she, she's then married or at least partnered with George, who's Black, whose family's Black. And so there are these, and even Caesar Robbins, right? First wife, and Jen is probably more fresh on all this than I am. So it's probably pretty important to say to all the people that view these markers and this effort as Black history, but Black history is multicultural.
Right.
And that's also what the Robbins family represent, especially this Jenny Dugan part of it. FYI.
Very helpful. Michael?
Just thinking more on location, both the Williams Old Marlboro intersection with respect to the George Washington Dugan and Jenny Dugan, and the area where the Freeman Rail Trail goes underneath Powder Mill, are both areas to consider signage for this Black enclave.
Those of you who mentioned getting something in West Concord, what do you feel about these selections? And I know it's not, but any feedback on these overall, this whole selection, this kind of West Concord, Walden Pondish, okay with it? Any other feedback?
I think it's great. Best wishes with it.
I wonder for the two ones along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, kind of thinking about those separately from the Black Heritage Trail, since they'll look very different in design because they have to fit the existing signage that's approved for the rail trail. So to think of that as like almost like we right now there's no heritage information at all on the rail trail. There's a lot around natural resources and that kind of thing. So I think we can maybe even think of that as separately of like an additional information, but maybe think of that separate from the heritage trail that we're trying to do. Because it's not going to kind of have a similar design approach to it, just in terms of, I can show you what it's going to have, like, the dragonfly, and they're really branding it as rail trail.
So you're saying that's if we use. Okay.
So I'm saying what I think we could do, influence the content of that, but maybe think of that as kind of a separate project from the Black Heritage Trail that's going to have its own branding. It could be like, all right, the Black Heritage Trail information on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, rather than it be another one of the signs, because we can't change the design of the rail trail signs.
Rail trail.
You know what I mean?
Fair.
But then if you went to the visitor center and you asked for the Black Heritage Trail map, it would be on there. I'm thinking out loud. Or if you went to the Black Heritage Trail website on your phone, it would be mentioned.
Yeah, that's exactly my point is, okay, we're saying that this Black Heritage Trail marker project is a project holistically. If everything we put in the ground, just saying, it looks that way, it's a lot easier to tell that narrative because you have something graphic. But I think, obviously, let's take advantage of the fact that there's going to be some signage on the Bruce Freeman to be able to weave that narrative. But maybe there is a place to put one of these Black Heritage marker signs in around that area. It's not going to conflict with the Bruce Freeman.
Right.
Maybe it's somewhere still there so that we can weave that multi-neighborhood narrative. That would be my fear is, yes, the content is going to be excellent to add, but then how do we have that visual connection?
Yeah. Yep. Well, that sort of leads us into this next conversation, Mimi, about design and looks of things.
Looks like Maria wants to say something.
Oh, sorry. I can't see. Go ahead.
And hopefully it's along the lines of what you're saying. When you use the word branding, are you thinking that there is a symbol that connects all of the different sites, regardless of where they are? And if that is, if I'm following correctly, then we used to use a symbol of Sankofa, which is just this, beautiful bird that's, of the Twi African, West African tradition. That's go back and get it, retrieving history, because, understanding our history prepares us for the future, sort of thing. Just throwing it out there.
I'm going to kind of show the signage that I'm approved to put on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is this one here on the right. So it has there was like multiple towns approved what kind of signage to, because it's on the rail trail, to brand the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, so that we'd have, if we were to, I've
If
got,
you're showing us something, we can't see it, just so you know.
oh, really?
I can.
Okay.
I can.
Oh, that must be me.
Uh,
Sorry, I'll be
And I
quiet.
think that's a
Hmm.
dragonfly. Is that a
Yeah,
dragonfly?
the dragonfly along the top. So that's the symbol of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. And this is kind of a directory thing. So it's got a little window that opens up and you can change the interior. So we can change the interior of it, but we can't change this actual frame of it. So I was envisioning like the Black Heritage Trail markers would have like a consistent look through all of them, with similar colors, and we'd only be able to change the input. If it's the Bruce Freeman Rail one, we can only do that. So maybe thinking a little bit of like this, I think there's going to be a lot of markers on a lot of spots on the trail. Maybe not all of them are going to have markers that look the same. And so just thinking a little bit of like our messaging, how we're maybe going to have resources that are available online, and that some of which are going to have grounded in the physical environment, but not all of them. Because since we're only doing 8 to 10 or so, this might be like an extra one rather than. So let me just kind of, are we ready to kind of think a little bit about design stuff?
Yeah, I think just keeping an eye on the time.
So do we have of the, just so I'm sure, like consensus of like those top ones that we're ready to kind of full steam ahead on, of those ones in green?
Can we see sort of a thumbs up if we're in the right track?
All right, great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so just moving on to the design part, because I do want to start getting some like fabrication ideas, refining this a little bit more. So you'll remember that we want to have some kind of shared identity, visual identity among all of these. We want to make sure it's kind of fits for its particular location, and we've got a variety of ones, some that are going to be a little more wooded, some that are a little more urban, some right next to a road. We want to kind of have that be like you can take them anywhere, durable enough from the outside, for exterior, and then it has to fit with in terms of appropriate in the public realm, based on kind of design standards from the town. And we're anticipating that everybody's going to be seeing these from 4 to 6 feet. I know we're sort of talking like the one by the Rotary, which might be a little bit of an outlier, and figure out how to, if that's the direction we want to go for. So this is sort of some of the existing signage that exists around here in town. And one of the things I took away from the last one is, we don't want to go like cast metal. We want to have something that's a little more flexible. Again, painted wood won't work. So the two kind of material options that we can think of, something that's would allow us to kind of update it and keep it more current, would be to think about digital printed panels that can be switched out more easily. And then also to think a little bit about aluminum signs, which I suspect the HDC isn't a huge fan of, and kind of in terms of like the standards within Concord, they're often more just straight directional informational. But I've got a couple examples of things to think about. And this is also a trail marker one. This one on the right might have some options if maybe there's a way of like decal applications, but I think it might not fit our goals of something a little more flexible that we can keep current. Similarly, artistic approaches weren't going to be a way to go. So going back to this aluminum sign concept, and then the digital panel, thinking about, we could go more of this kind of directory approach that would have sort of a standard frame that we could update. So similar to the ones in West Concord, that it's got like a little frame, it's got a glass thing that you can open up, and then you can change out the interior. This is another one that I'm not quite sure how they put this in, but it looks like it's just sort of affixed to a standalone frame. And then in terms of like aluminum panels, there's these kind of aluminum signs. There's some ways of doing it much more with greater design approach that it's a similar kind of ease of replacing and printing, but have got a lot more pizzazz to them. So they kind of fit our interests a little bit. I don't think it looks great on the kind of standard pole here, but the ones that are kind of in a nicer
Yeah.
pole and framing feel like they might work for our purposes. So I was just kind of curious about folks' overall thoughts about how to think about this, whether we, now that you're kind of seeing some of the options for more temporary changing, whether it still fits with what we're thinking about. Michael?
There was a pillar design that you put up, maybe 3 slides earlier in, something that's changeable, that just had a window in it that you could, back.
This one?
Wow. Yeah.
Back from that, I think. Yes. No, back. There was you brown tall pillar with beige print on it. You pass. I'm sorry. Point being,
is it this one here on the left?
No, before
Nope.
this, I
There's
think.
there's one before this.
before
One more.
before one more.
No, one more. This one.
Yeah.
Okay, on the far right, something like that that's windowed, or something in the center that the center one, that panel looks like it could be changeable, or something with a changeable panel that we could update. They could be consistent, and it's something else to consider.
What was
And
it
I
that,
think-
is it that you liked the kind of size and vertical aspect to this? What were some of the things that you like about these two?
Simple, vertical, and people. I guess simple, vertical, and potentially changeable. Either the thing on the far right, where the text is, could be either windows, so you could open it up, put something in, or slide something in as things changes, or the one in the center. That panel could be made of anything that could be changeable. So I guess the simple, vertical, changeable, visible.
Okay. Maria?
I saw the beautiful coverage of speaking about Ellen Garrison at the Ellen Garrison Middle School. And it looked like, and you all, can speak to this, like the students were completely engaged. And I'm wondering if this might be one of the areas in which they can contribute to this project if you narrow it down to 3 options and then have a real quick, small focus group of 8 to 12 of those middle
That's a good
schoolers
idea.
so they feel a part of it.
That's a cool idea. Got it.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And I think that, Justin Cameron, the principal, is like very much engaged with having his students be aware of and talking about Ellen Garrison and her legacy and like Black history in Concord more generally. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Any of the Bobs or Sam or Joe is making space? Anything you want to, or Rebecca, anyone who hasn't said anything? Not forcing you, just making a space in case
No.
anyone to add.
I was curious. I wasn't Maria throughout the concept of the Sankofa bird as a symbol to connect the people of color of African lineage and descent, right? When you look at it historical from an ancestral perspective. And I wasn't sure, was it that the image is not one that can be used in Concord, or I wasn't sure if that was even something to be discussed and considered. It was mentioned and then kind of disappeared quickly.
I think it can be, in the end, whatever we wanted the image to be. There's no reason, unless I'm sure there's a copyright available, or so that we can artists create something if we had to. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason we couldn't. I'm sure you guys could, Maria or someone else could send us, hey, here's here's what we used before, and
Yeah, I think Jen has it.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that was just lurking and lingering in my mind as the conversation continued to move forward.
You're like our process person, Sam. You're always listening. That's good. Every group should have a process guy or gal, woman. Rob, you had mentioned about putting Harriet Tubman or other pictures on there. That's what I liked about one of the images you showed, Mimi. I didn't realize we could do something that was cost affordable with this digital print now. That's because that would be an easy way to get some of these pictures, so we don't have not this carved sign. We actually have pictures of people that look very like a website, basically, on a panel. I thought that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I'm going of the approach of like we should go for what we want, what we think, rather than what we think the HTC is going to approve, because we have to. I think we should just kind of put forward our intention. One thought I have is we've got Patriots Day coming up, and when we had initially conceived of this project, we had thought about doing some temporary signs that could be just like lawn signs to let people know what we're doing. So one thought would be, now that we've got our 10 locations, draft kind of, this is the text, have it up for 2 days or 3 days, which doesn't need HDC approval, and to just kind of start the conversations in the public realm, and we could have a little QR code and send people over. And that could also, because there's always a little interplay of like the content you want to put on and the design, and that will even help ourselves kind of think a little bit of like, oh, well, we need a lot more text to tell this story, or we can't find a graphic for everything. It'll just help that thinking.
Maria?
Yeah, could you turn that into a scavenger hunt? Make it an interactive, not just helping to develop the final design, but make it fun on Patriots Day?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Find the freedom sites. Yeah, find it. Yeah.
I'm also wondering a little bit if there's a way to gameize this, if that makes sense. Like how kids, I don't know if that's a word, Robert, don't judge me, but gameize. Like I think about
You did say
Roblox
game,
and
didn't
things
you?
like that, and
Sorry.
how like kids can make areas in Roblox and designing. So like, is there a way to then add that layer to bring in like your elementary school kids who are doing Fortnite and Roblox, and like kind of give them that layer and aspect into it, if that makes, like the trading cards, what Beth is showing, like a way to game it, because that's how you hook them, and then
Like even because so many people are in the center at Patriots Day, maybe we just start with the center ones, and you have to find these 6 today and bring it to the visitor center, and you get up to something. Robert,
When the library did, when the library did something like, not the library, the visitor center, right? The visitor center did something similar, gamify or scavenger hunt, and had find things in the visitor center and around that whole property, the Buttrick's Mansion and whatnot. At the end, they want a pin, I think.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's very
Happening about prizes.
Yeah.
And it might help us if we get feedback. Then if they are local, then we invite them into our conversations and say, what did you like? If they're willing to share their contact information, if they're engaged enough by seeing these temporary, things, then we collect their information and say, come to one of our meetings, tell us what you thought about the process with the project. Not all of them obviously are going to do that, but you might pick up a couple of community members that are really engaged in helping forward the progress.
Yeah, I keep thinking, and Jen and I had this conversation a little bit yesterday of like, okay, I'll date myself. Like I feel always so old, and I'm like, how do we get the youths? How do we get the youths involved, right? The youths. And so like my big thing is like, how do we know that they love history? We know that they love learning. We know that they have a capacity for it. So how do we get them involved in the one that they're like consistently around? And so that's been my braining lately of trying to figure that out.
That's a really good idea. and
Mm.
gives us he gives us a nice deadline. Go
I
ahead.
would say to Nikki's, I think it's all about relevancy and connection, right? And so we have to figure out how to make it relevant to them, how they can see themselves in it, how, ideally, how they could be excited enough to want to look more deeper into what this is saying to them. Obviously, it's why a lot of public educational programs haven't been as effective as they can for African American young people with some of the standard history, because those histories didn't always
Don't have them.
didn't always see themselves in the history, although they followed the script and learned, the language of history that they were taught. So I think relevancy, connection, maybe even doing a survey and then try to figure out what might excite them, what might interest them. So just my thoughts about how to connect young people.
Yeah, I think it might be nice to connect the survey and the scavenger hunt idea. Sort of like do the game and tell us what you think, and
Yeah, tell
'cause
us what you
that'll
think. I
get the
like
kids
that.
that are most interested.
Yeah, great. That's why having all together is always so helpful for us, because these are so good. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I want to. So Mimi, did you get enough information to move forward?
I did.
Or-
Do folks think we should scramble to get this ready for Patriots Day? Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. We'll make it happen.
Okay, we'll do it.
Put a note out there that this is our first sort of public, like we're just really clear about the intentionality of doing it. We are actively looking for feedback. These are the places we're thinking of putting. This is some of the interpretive material we're planning on. It is not final. It is not, it's still open for discussion. Like I think why not? We have a captive audience, here every year, and a lot of it is local and regional. It's not, especially right now with the state of this country, we're not seeing a ton of international. So let's capitalize on the people that are going to come back and want to learn back and want to come and engage with tours or attractions and programs. I think
Maybe I have a question too. So I know there was the conversation of a survey, but is there a way to QR code that and put that in places that are nearby where the thing is going to be, and then it can be like a little survey, hey, you're standing here, and we're thinking of putting a marker here. What do you think? And having a QR code that people can scan while they're walking. That way, they can kind of keep talking and thinking it through as they're going.
Yeah, as folks have been talking, I was sort of thinking of we could maybe have two lawn signs. One is this is what we're thinking would be on the sign. This is what, and then another one that's this is what this is all about. Take part in the scavenger hunt, complete the survey, come to this meeting. And we can have the standard, this is what it's about, and then all the individual kind of samples.
I have a question or a thought. Again, from IMLS and the National Park Service, adding a question, gets the conversation started. So is it possible both for a Patriots Day, but also in the final design, to think about what one question might be on these markers to help people think? One question that comes to my mind, just as an example, is, why might Black history be considered blended history? Because honestly, I think the problem with the current era is this belief in binaries, white, Black. And I mean, honestly, if you were to do a survey of just us on this phone call, we're all from blended families and blended histories.
Right.
So I think it would help our community to know that it's not binary. These families that we're highlighting were complex families, mixed families, and in both lineage and progeny. So, what kind of questions could we place that could pique conversation at a marker? And not just asking a question for the development of a design and whatnot, but to provoke or pique conversation and dialogue.
I think that's a good rule of thumb, even just as each of the signs have got like, what's the relevance for today? Yeah.
Bob?
Well, your comments make me think of something I wanted to raise, and that question is, what is the overall narrative about Concord's Black history that we are telling, and how do the signs help push that narrative forward and fit with that narrative, the overall narrative, and not so that people get different little pieces when they're going through, but how they get pieces that plug into this overall narrative that we want folks to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're going to have to come up with like a narrative statement, or the 5 big ideas, or the 3 things we want you to learn on this trail that we all can sort of put our head, sign off on, mess with, and then the narrative, then we have something to compare it to. We don't have that. I mean, we have it conceptually if you look at the website, but we need to have something that you guys can look at and polish, I think. I don't know. This is my first thought. Like, you got to have a focus. And then once we have a focus statement, we compare everything to that focus statement. I think we have it intellectually, all of us on this call, but I think we need to like put something in front of you.
Yeah, it's like each sign is like a chapter in the book.
Yeah.
And how do they relate to the overall theme of that book is important, so that if you're in West Concord and you're reading that, you still get a sense of how that is part of this larger narrative.
Yep. Got it. Write it down. Yep.
I'm wondering if folks might be willing to have sort of an interim meeting, since kind of if this is going to be our first like out in the public sphere. I would like, before we put things to print that's going to go out for the middle of April, for folks to have a chance to kind of come together to talk about it, not just try to do it online.
Yep, I agree. Could maybe, just to save time, just pick another random Wednesday at noon?
Say, in 2 weeks, the 25th?
Yeah. And we know everyone might not be able to make it, but just that way we stick to Wednesdays at noon. So we'll try to get something organized for you to respond to and read ahead of time, and then we'll discuss it on Wednesday at noon. Wednesday the 25th at noon. Does that sound all right?
And then a couple other dates to put on folks' calendars, just to give you a heads up. We've got another presentation to the Historic Districts Commission. I'm just kind of keeping them updated in each iteration for the 18th of March. That's at 7 o'clock. That's an online meeting, which basically I'll say, these are our top spots that we're looking at. This is some of our design approaches that we're looking at. We're going to be doing these temporary things to just fill them in. And then on April 13th, the select board has asked for an update on all the different public art projects and all the stuff happening for Patriots Day. So it's like every community project, it's going to be a big night. So everything from temporary pianos to pride crosswalks to Black heritage signs. And I think there's going to be kind of, it's part of like the bigger narrative of like getting these untold stories, really putting into our public realm the fullness of our community. So that's going to be at 7. I'm not sure exactly when on the agenda, but their meetings start at 6. But typically they get to this type of topic around 7 on April 13th. But I'll send out information to everybody when the agenda's up.
The HGC was what date again?
It's on the 18th of March.
Okay.
And HGC is on, well, they're both available on Zoom. HGC is only Zoom. Even if you're just there doing something else, it's worth having you come if you can on the HDC meeting. It'd be good for you to. I don't think I've ever met anyone on the advisory committee. I think it'd be good. And then select board, if you can, being in person will be important. Please
just send out the dates. I'm scribbling down. So.
And I have one more date. Just if you're going to be in town for Juneteenth, we haven't figured it out yet, but it sure seems like we should do a little, because the town does a flag raising at 9:30, 10 in the morning, and then there's a festival at the Robbins House in the afternoon. If you're going to be in town for Juneteenth, please save that date. I think we'll have to figure out something we should do that day related to all this. What a perfect day, holiday to, I don't know. So say the date. Unless you have other more exciting things to do, I understand. I'm trying to keep an eye on time. We're at 1:07. Any last words for the good of the group? Any
Yes,
last comments?
Mimi,
Hey,
may
Joe.
I ask, is that 25th meeting intended to be in person?
Yes. Oh, no, that'll be another Zoom meeting. That will be just of our advisory team.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Oh, that's a good point, Joe. We're going to get together in person at least once before June, hopefully. As soon as all the
Yes.
snow melts, right? Which is really close. Any last comments for the good of the group?
Yeah, I like Rob's comment about what is the narrative and how with the 10 sites, and I'm not knowing how much, there could be a location where there's more, I don't know, the Robbins House, the QR code, whatever, that can bring you to a larger body of information, but how those 10 locations can either tell a part of the story or repetitively remind people that this is an important story for the town and for the Black people that once lived this. I love that idea and just thinking how creatively it could really, again, be another way to tell the story
Mm.
or remind people of the story. Because that's what repetition does, right? It brings you back if in case you might have forgotten.
Good point. Any other last thoughts from the group? Well, whenever we get together, it's so helpful. Thank you for your insight, feedback, leadership, and pushing and really good ideas. And we're going to try to do our best to take what you've given us today, work it into something usable, and bring it back to you in advance of the next meeting so we can keep pushing. We're making distance from January to now. There's a lot of really good progress, and we thank you for helping make it happen. So appreciate your time today.
Thanks,
Holler if
everybody.
you need anything. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.